teleprompter. Now he's a genius with it. He's as good as Reagan. He's as good as Clinton. He's as good as Obama with it. He felt comfortable in this debate. That first one probably, I actually thought he did much better in that debate when you look at it a second time than a lot of people think. But this debate, this could be one of the biggest knockouts I've seen in a presidential debate. I don't think I've ever seen one candidate dominate the other candidate more. She was completely on the defensive the entire night.
He was unrelenting. Let's go to the issue that everyone was talking about coming into this tape from, 11 years ago. I thought his answer, number one, he seemed sincere in his apology.
Of course he was.
Okay. And number two, he waited, and because she kept pressing it, he said, all right, I'll go there.
Yes. She was the one who began the unrelenting, vicious, nasty, horrible attack on him. So I think the way he answered it, he apologized, but he also put it in proper perspective. We got a world in which people are being killed all over the world. We've had more Islamic terrorist attacks in the last 10 months than we've had since September 11, all over the world, including the United States. We're waiting for the next city to get attacked, right?
Scary. It's scary.
We have no plan. It's obvious from her ridiculous answers. We have no plan in Syria. She doesn't know what the heck she's doing in Syria. I mean, she has no idea. They have no idea how to set priorities. I was thinking, when they started talking about announcing what you're going to do, I was thinking, like Eisenhower didn't announce we're going to invade in Normandy.
So it was a good point. But think of this debate in substance. They talked about the economy, substance, taxes, substance, vetting refugees, substance, immigration, substance, Syria, Iraq, substance, yes. Radical Islam, substance.
I come away from it with the following. If we elect Donald Trump, I get more money in my pocket. If we elect her, she can take 20% out. Yeah. I got that. Now, what Donald Trump was trying to do, even with the tape thing, is to say, look, it's important, and I'm sorry, but we got people dying. While we're talking, somebody's getting shot in Chicago. Murder went up last year more than it did in the last 41 years. There's something going wrong in this country. There's too much violence, both street crime violence and terrorism. And we need a strong president. It was quite clear. He's strong, she's weak.
He also decided, okay, because she hit him with the kitchen sink in the first debate. Kaine tried to regurgitate the memorized lines again and again.
Kaine was pathetic.
All right. So he came in, but what he said, he went after her on the email. He went after her in lying. He went after Benghazi. He went in the first debate. He left all that on the table. He didn't leave anything on the table tonight.
Anything on the table tonight, and she never had an answer for the 33,000 emails and how you can destroy documents after a federal subpoena. So when he got to the point where he said you belonged in jail, he's absolutely right.
And he'd prosecute her. You might be the attorney general.
Well, I could convict her on at least, we started with 13. I'm up to about 26 now, Sean. And the reality is she lied to the FBI. Martha Stewart went to jail for lying to the FBI.
One time.
One time. She did it 39 times. She had no She had a lot of recollection of all the stuff she wanted to say about Trump tonight, but she had no recollection 39 times when she was talking to the FBI.
Last question. The issue of actions versus words. I've interviewed Juanita. I've interviewed Kathleen. I've interviewed Paula. I've interviewed Kathy Shelton, who Hillary's on tape bragging that she got somebody she thought was guilty off of raping a 12-year-old girl. Are people now, is the media now challenged? Do they have a responsibility to bring up these issues?
Well, if they're going to go back with a 12-year-old tape on him or something that happened 20 years ago, this is serious stuff. I mean, I talked to that woman,
Kathy Shelton,
for some time. She did a lot of damage to Kathy Shelton. I mean, laughing twice over
laughing and bragging and knowing that he was guilty.
Yeah, and the woman was raped and can never have a child. And then Juanita Broderick, who says she was raped and Hillary Clinton attacked her. She said that herself in the microphone. Yeah. Someone finally gave her a chance to voice the way in which she was horribly treated by the President of the United States. Now, you want to start talking about some language on a tape and attack people about that, well, then you got to deal with your own problems.
You got to deal with action
you got to deal with
behavior.
A sexual predator and his attacker, Hillary Clinton.
Mr. Mayor, great to see you. On a scale of 1 to 10, you're giving this a 50.
Oh,
100?
Knockout, one of the biggest defeats in or victories in a presidential debate ever.
All right, Mr. Mayor, good to see you. Thank you so much.
Guys, Dave.
All right, joining us now, we're in the spin room, is Trump's campaign manager, Kellyanne Conway. One thing, Frank Luntz had a big win for Trump tonight.
Yes, in his dials. Absolutely. And I think most of America will agree with that if they're being honest, if they actually watch the debate and not the post-spin. You saw a very resolute Donald Trump tonight, focus showing why he is ready to be commander-in-chief and president on day one, Sean. This is a guy who took the case to Hillary Clinton, as so many people wanted him to, on Syria, on the emails, on Benghazi, on frankly...
Oh, it was funny when he said acid wash.
Acid wash, the emails.
That was pretty funny.
Bleach pit, acid wash, it's all the same.
Yeah.
Look, he hears people all the time out in the stump when he's traveling around this country. They're so frustrated that yet again a different law, a different set of standards applied to Hillary Clinton over her emails than does apply to other people who break the law.
He also said, look, if I'm president, you're not going to get a pass. You will be prosecuted. There were so many good lines by him. I think the difference, from my perspective, this debate and the last debate, I don't know if he was holding back. I don't know if it was by design. But she had gone after him hard. Tim Kaine regurgitated the talking points. And finally he said, okay, let's play.
Yeah, let's
and then he was Donald Trump.
He came to play. And look, he told 88 million Americans on live TV last time that he had come to do some rough stuff about Hillary and her treatment of women in her husband's life, and that he decided not to at that moment. But tonight he realized that there is so much to be gained by doing that, that if this woman's going to be president of the United States, you have to put it all out there, and you have to let people realize that she represents the past and the status quo and a rigged, corrupt system.
He kept going back to this. You've been there. By the way, she's been there longer than 30 years. The big themes,
exactly.
Right?
He was being polite. She's been there much more than 30 years and doesn't have much product or deliverable to show for it. He's absolutely right. And I'll put it in my own words. If she's been there all these years, why do millions of American women don't have health insurance? Why are so many of them living in poverty, millions and millions of women? What is the product? She said, I'm fighting for women, I'm fighting for women. And he said at the end, I respect the fact that she's a fighter, and that's true, but she's always been fighting for herself. And I think if you look at her career, it really is always Hillary first, and he's putting America first.
Let me go through the differences, because they all came out tonight. Radical Islam, say it or don't say it. Vet refugees, increase the number of refugees or you don't. The economy, raise taxes, cut taxes. You build a wall, you don't build a wall. You know, on every single issue, he prosecuted the case about Benghazi, about Iraq, about Syria, about Putin, about straight on down the line. This was a substantive debate on top of everything else, and he brought up the issues of her character, the emails, the bleach pit. And by the way, even the treatment of women by the Clintons, which was the big issue supposedly coming into this debate, I would say he put that to rest.
Yes, and whether it's some of the reaction he received this weekend, Sean, or in tonight's debate, he's showing that this contest is us versus them. Who's the them? It's the elites, it's the media, it sometimes is the establishment.
He really is anti-establishment.
Yes, and he's conveying that message on behalf of the people. I mean, look, he's built a movement, and people feel like they're a part of that. And they don't want him to throw in the towel. They want to see what they saw tonight, which is somebody who's willing to take the case directly to her and willing to stand up for their principles. I was very proud of him many times tonight. And one of the times you haven't mentioned yet is when he said, you called tens of millions of people deplorable. And then her answer to that was so terrible. She's like, I really meant you are. It's like, no, that's not what you said. In the comfort of yet another Wall Street fat cat donor event. And funny.
Very funny.
And humorous. That's why tonight they're all spinning about...
By the way, that's the person I've known for years.
Yes, they're all spinning about him being in her space while she... Oh, come on. That's the best you have. A 90-minute substantive debate, and the best you have is he was standing behind her when she was answering.
Then I'm close to you. I'm in your space right now, but you're in mine too, okay? Kellyanne, thank you. Congratulations.
Thank you,
Good
Sean.
night. Thank you.
you.
All right, coming up, we're just getting things started. We're in the spin room. We are in St. Louis, Missouri. Newt Gingrich, Laura Ingraham, Nigel Farage, Monica Crowley, all here. That and more as Hannity continues.
With her, it's all talk and no action.
In the past,
and again, Bernie Sanders, it's really bad judgment. She has made bad judgment not only on taxes, she's made bad judgments on Libya, on Syria, on Iraq. I mean, her and Obama, whether you like it or not, the way they got out of Iraq, the vacuum they've left, that's why ISIS formed in the first place. They started from that little area, and now they're in 32 different nations, Hillary. Congratulations. Great job.
All right, Donald Trump calling out Hillary Clinton one of many, many times earlier tonight. Here with reaction, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. I don't know how you feel about it. I've watched a lot of presidential debates. I don't think I've ever seen any one person get crushed the way Hillary Clinton got crushed tonight. Your thoughts? Those are mine.
Look, I think that Trump came in prepared to go as hard as he needed to. I think he stayed nose to nose with her all evening, and I think that she steadily lost. I mean, she partly lost just because her case is so bad that once you get into substance, she starts to disintegrate. He was very fast and I think very good in coming back on a number of occasions and basically totally outmaneuvering her in terms of language, examples, bringing her own record to bear. As you know, she was false about when the red line in Syria occurred. She actually was the Secretary of State when it was first announced. And so you have a whole series of these interesting things. And Trump would say something which was clearly factually based. And then she would say, well, he's not telling the truth again. But if you look at it again and again, her problem is 33,000 emails deleted is real. Making millions of dollars off of while you're serving the government is real. And so you go down these items, and Hillary had a problem. I also think she was totally rattled by having the 4 women there. And I give Trump some real credit here. He managed to thread a needle of having a press conference in advance, having the women there, but really only getting into counterpunching when she forced the issue. So I think as a result, plus he was using a very calm tone of voice, something you and I used to talk to him about, where I think he met the standard. And the result was he felt okay while he was saying very tough things. And I think that in the end, he did very well.
And on substance, I mean, I didn't feel we got to the substance that we got to in this debate. And the substance is, you know, vetting refugees, really important issue, huge differences. The substance of taxes, Supreme Court justices, immigration, borders. There are profound differences here. How ISIS was created, whether to say radical Islam. All of this came up, and all of Hillary's tactics of dumping the kitchen sink, I think backfired. You could see it in her demeanor. She started out smiling. She ended up biting her tongue by the end of that debate.
Well, and you also had the whole issue of the fact that we now know from the WikiLeaks that she wants a Canadian-style healthcare system to replace Obamacare. Again, a clear gap. I mean, I don't see how anybody could look at tonight's debate and say it did not have a very significant amount of substance and policy differentiation that was far more than I think you got in the first debate. Trump did much better tonight. Now, if he improves as much over tonight as he did over the first night, the third debate will just be so one-sided, it'll be embarrassing.
What do you make? I actually thought it was kind of that way tonight, but that was my biased view. What can you say? Here's the question. Coming into this debate, this tape that had been released, I want you to address, number one, how he handled it. Sorry, I'm embarrassed, it was wrong. He didn't bring up the Clintons' problems until, as you said, she really pressed it. And they said, okay, you're going to go here, now let's talk. And I think at that moment, that's when the debate changed dramatically.
I thought it was kind of crazy what she did. She knew that he was prepared to fight over that stuff. She knew that he had the witnesses in the audience he could call on. And she knew that he had apologized in a way that would be acceptable to most independents and most Republicans, probably not convinced left-wing Democrats. But nonetheless, they were at a point to stay away from it. She came back and went after him in a way which was almost like putting up a big sign begging, please hit me. I don't get it. And so he hit her, and he hit her, I thought, very directly, very powerfully. I particularly think the one case, and you know the young woman in question, the case of the 12-year-old of Hillary laughing about getting this accused rapist off is so indefensible, given her arguments about how you should treat women, that it's just breathtaking that she would get into that particular fight. But it was done well. It wasn't, my fear was the whole debate was going to degenerate into that kind of stuff. Instead, you had very intense, decisive moments. Then you went back to public policy questions. And there, you have to give Trump a lot of credit. Remember, in the first debate, Trump did very well in the first 45 minutes, not nearly as well in the second 45. I would argue in this debate, he was gaining energy and she was losing energy. He was even better in the second half of the debate, and the gap between the two of them was getting to be bigger and bigger. And I think that's something that he and his team should feel very good about.
What
I think
about
they really
the weak
came
Republicans that wanted to panic And, you know, I think I've said going back in the primary that establishment Republicans, they didn't want Donald Trump, the outsider, or even Ted Cruz for that matter. They hated both of them because they were the insurgent candidates. So it doesn't surprise me that they want to cut and run at any point of controversy. What are your thoughts on them? And we only have about 30 seconds.
Well, my thoughts are, first of all, that tonight they have a lot of egg on their face because the guy who showed up in the debate tonight clearly is the Republican nominee, and he clearly has earned being the Republican nominee. And it's kind of crazy for somebody to suggest dumping him at this point. And I would hope that a lot of those who panicked over the weekend would reconsider their position in the light of what we now have learned about Hillary through WikiLeaks and the importance of stopping her from truly crippling the country.
Does he win this presidency?
I think he is back on track, and I think if they prosecute one simple thing, the Brazilian bankers, she told them in a secret speech, she wants open borders, which means 600 million people could come to the United States. On that one issue alone, he could beat her decisively. Right. So I think the odds are he wins despite everything the media has done in a totally one-sided way.
Mr. Speaker, good to see you. Thank you as always, and thanks for staying up late. Joining us now is the leader of the UK Independence Party, Nigel Farage, is with us. Fox News contributor Monica Crowley, Fox News contributor, editor-in-chief of LifeZette, nationally syndicated radio host Laura Ingraham. All right, ladies, good to see you. Let's talk.
Hillary totally won this night. She came across as strong and forceful. And
yeah.
She prosecuted the case against. She really gave us the solutions on how to grow the middle class. I felt the solutions they were oozing out of every pore of Hillary. For anyone to go on television tonight and say that this was not a decisive and frankly masterful performance by Donald Trump should just drop the pretense of being a Republican strategist. They never strategize, by the way. Yeah. Or a Republican, quote, pundit or an analyst. He came in with the entire GOP establishment really against him. He came in with the media against him. He came in with Hollywood against him and the entire Bush apparatus, okay? All of them against him, and he came in and he said, you know
Romney
something?
Apparatus
and we're going down the tubes. You're an architect of this decline, and we need a new path forward. He said this, and he hit her in a way that not a single Republican in the last 30 years has been able to lay a glove on the Clintons.
I thought it was devastating.
Did it. We've been waiting for this moment for someone face to face.
I was in a trailer with a bunch of people, and all I heard was, "Oh, ooh!" Yeah. I mean, there was screaming all night. When he got to the Abe Lincoln line, I thought I was going to fall out of my chair.
That was Laura and me.
Yeah,
was that you?
We're in the next room.
Yeah.
Look, tonight what you saw was a dramatic reversal of fortune for both candidates. There's a phrase, don't give up 5 minutes before the miracle. What you saw tonight from Donald Trump, he performed a miracle. He gave such a dramatic, extraordinary, dominating performance. He had a command over the issues. He took the fight to Hillary Clinton. He did not back down. You saw a man who is ready for the presidency. If that Donald Trump shows up into the third debate, he will win, because what he did tonight, Sean, was reset this campaign. All of the people that you and Laura just talked about, the GOP establishment, the media, the White House, the Clinton campaign, they were all deeply invested over the last 48 hours in Donald Trump's downfall. What they saw tonight has forced them to try to readjust. And what you're seeing is panic on their side. You saw it in the faces of Bill Clinton. You saw it in the faces of Hillary Clinton, the entire Clinton team, because now they have to adjust to a new reality. They thought they had it in the bag over the last 48 hours. Donald Trump just reset the game.
The women showing up was a powerful statement because, all right, I actually wrote an article, I put it up on my website, Hannity.com, words, actions. You know, for all the media, they're so bankrupt, they never talked about any of the issues involving Hillary Clinton. And when you compare and contrast, there's a big difference. All right, Nigel, let's talk about Brexit. Let's talk about similarities here. Trade, immigration, refugees. How big an impact do you think, what similarities do you see, these issues on the American campaign versus what you witnessed?
Well, the crossover is massive because on the one side, you've got Hillary, backed by Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan and all the multinationals. And on the other side, you've got an anti-establishment campaign. That is exactly what we saw in the British referendum. Now, the key to us winning that referendum was about 2.5 million people who don't normally vote or who have never voted in their lives turned out on June 23rd, and a big majority of them voted for Brexit. And the absolute key to this Trump campaign is, can he mobilize? Can he get people out there? You know, the little people, the put-upon people, those who completely know that Washington, as it's currently set up, has got nothing to offer them.
Yeah.
Can he mobilize them? Can he incentivize them to go out and vote? And I think tonight, had the immigration question come up, he would have done even better, because these are the issues that ordinary people really care about.
And you know what? America can't make the mistake of Europe. And we're now seeing the damage that has been done because of immigration policies and refugee issues. Laura, I thought on that particular issue, the vetting of refugees was particularly strong. Also, the creation of ISIS.
Yep.
And Hillary was wrong about Iraq and Syria and Iran, et cetera.
I had a woman, I was flying from LA today. She was the gate agent of the airline I flew on.
Yeah.
She was an Iranian Jew, really interesting person. And she said, can I tell you about the 4 refugees that I processed earlier this week? They come with just a piece of, like a stationery from the State Department.
Yeah.
They have their name on them and apparently their birth date. And that's all they have.
That's
and
it.
she said, we're resettling them all over the country. And they show up and they get on the plane, and then 4 of them were dropped in Minneapolis
We
this
read
week.
the story about the passports were being printed by...
Oh, yeah, but they didn't even have, these people didn't even have passports. She went on and she pulled me aside, said, I have to tell you what's happening at Los Angeles International Airport. And I think Nigel's right. The immigration issue cuts across party lines, because we see veterans eating out of garbage cans. We see individuals who are down on their luck, who can't get help because they make a little bit too much money to get any assistance. And yet Barack Obama just waved in, I guess, 53,000 of the immigrant families. They can stay for a number of years. And I think people are just fed up. It's just not fair. And so he cut into that basic issue of fairness tonight and got it off the old sex talk and just talked about what works
he had
in
to
the
deal with it.
country.
I thought he handled that
handled
really,
it well
really
at the beginning.
I agree.
Absolutely.
You know, Monica, when you think about Hillary, I've always said she can't run on the economy. She can't run on her foreign policy. Trump really hammered that home tonight. And on top of that, when you add in the argument that he made many times that you've been there all these years, what have you done?
Right.
There is no answer to that, because she's done nothing.
The critical thing Donald Trump did tonight was he took the focus off of himself and he put it onto the American people and the future of the country. That was his whole rationale for running in the first place. He went to the American people and he said, I don't need this job. I'm super rich. I have a great family and a successful business.
It's costing me money.
And it's costing me money. But I'm doing it because I care about the American worker and the future of the nation. That's what he did tonight. He turned the tables on her, and because
So when
she
they've done
cannot run
5
her
more
record,
tapes and 10 more tapes, it's going to end up on deaf ears?
well, look, every politician gets hit, when the crap hits the fan. It's inevitable. The question is not what they hit you with, but how you react.
By the way, you sound
And
like
tonight-
Rocky in the last rock.
Yeah.
No matter how hard you hit,
They're going to come out.
Right, and they're going to have more. This is
They'll probably
they're
make
up
more
a
things. And they're gonna
research
say,
just started.
and then what he should say at that point is, okay, now how are you going to fix the economy, Hillary?
No.
Now what are you going to do for the middle class? Now what are you really going to do to our with our veterans, because you serve them poorly?
But
Like
you
every
can't-
time they
listen,
do
this
that,
is
it
a
has
really
to be
important
about what's
issue.
happened.
I cornered John Podesta and Claire McCaskill earlier tonight, and I asked them questions. Okay, you're upset about Donald Trump's words. What about their actions? What about what they called women? How they smeared, slandered, besmirched? They don't have answers.
How Hillary did. Hillary
did.
Hillary
Called
it's not
Monica
that-
a narcissistic
It's not
Looney
that
Tune.
someone was unfaithful to her. That's not the issue. It's what she did in response. I mean, and I think I think that's part of it is put to rest tonight. There'll
agree
be
with
other
you.
tapes. They'll be trying to do it. I just think, as
Because
Monica
she
says,
can't answer it.
she has no substantive argument for American renewal. She has no substantive argument.
In fact, tonight she actually was so desperate she was reaching back to the 1990s
Oh my God, going to her husband
try to
again.
make her case for 2016.
My husband balanced
And this
the
gets
budget.
to the bigger point, which is she still, after all of these years, is not offering a clear vision for where she wants to take the country or a compelling rationale for her
Donald
candidacy
Trump did.
beyond I'm a woman and it's my turn.
Nigel, last question for you. As you look at this debate, you had advice for Donald Trump after the first debate. What do you tell him after this one?
Well, the trouble with the first debate was she kept attacking him, and he's a proud man. And he kept defending, and not getting onto the issues. And what happened tonight was the first 15 to 20 minutes was quite uncomfortable watching for everybody, and then we got onto the issues. And what we saw tonight with Trump was actually he's got more mastery over policy than people had previously given him credit for. And I thought he dominated this debate tonight. I thought Hillary was on the back foot throughout. And I think as we go to Las Vegas in a few days' time, psychologically, he now has a massive edge. And I think a campaign that this morning was backs to the wall now has momentum again.
All right, Nigel, thank you real quick.
The Republicans have better look at themselves in the mirror tonight. If they want to win this election, they all better get on their big boy pants, stop it with the, attacking the nominee, and say, we've got to defeat the Clintons.
We've got two women here saying, guys, get your big boy pants on.
We got to defeat the Clintons, right? I mean, if you want to defeat the Clintons, then go defeat the Clintons, because the Democrats are all about winning, and they're going to drop everything they can to win this election. Otherwise, go to your think tanks and pontificate all day long about your agenda that's never going to be enacted.
If I'm in a fight, I want you two on my
side. Got you, Sean.
All right.
We need to do what the Democrats do, which is they stay united no matter what. And our side never does it, to our great disgrace and shame.
We got a break. Good to see you both. When we come back, Judge Jeanine Pirro, Dr. Gina Loudon, Lisa Booth, Reince Priebus, and much more as we continue from Washington University. We are in St. Louis, Missouri. Also, David Limbaugh.
I didn't think I'd say this, but I'm going to say it. And I hate to say it. But if I win, I am going to instruct my Attorney General to get a special prosecutor to look into your situation, because there has never been so many lies, so much deception. There has never been anything like it. And we're going to have a special prosecutor. When I speak, I go out and speak. The people of this country are furious. In my opinion, the people that have been long-term workers at the FBI are furious. There has never been anything like this, where emails and you get a subpoena. You get a subpoena, and after getting the subpoena, you delete 33,000 emails.
Another powerful moment. Donald Trump saying he would appoint a special prosecutor to investigate Hillary Clinton's email scandal. That was earlier tonight at the second presidential debate. Joining us now, psychology expert, radio television host, Dr. Gina Loudon, the host of Justice, and that's Judge Jeanine Pirro, and Washington Examiner contributor Lisa Booth. Guys, good to see you all. All right, you're the attorney.
Hi,
I think he's right. I think there's a prosecutable case.
There's no question there's a prosecutable case. And, she looked nervous. She really did. What you've got here with Hillary Clinton is a prosecution for the emails and the classified materials. You've also got a prosecution for the Clinton Foundation. Yeah. You've got a prosecution for perjury, for lying, obstruction of justice, tampering with evidence.
Somebody brought this up tonight. You know what I felt?
Tampering, it's all there.
Did you feel tonight that finally somebody is saying to the Clintons what no media person would dare ask?
And the fact is that they have been surrounded by people who protected them. She corrupted the Department of Justice, the FBI. They lied for her. They've destroyed information. They've withheld emails.
How do you really feel?
Country, well, you know what? I feel the way the country feels. Yeah. She needs to be prosecuted. It needs absolutely
But the case was prosecuted tonight, and that's why Trump had such a great night.
Tonight, we saw the quintessential difference between somebody who is really there speaking on behalf of the people and somebody who is really there as part of the establishment, who, Sean, you saw it on her face. She could not believe she was losing that debate. And she was losing.
She was getting crushed.
She was, and her eyes were shifting back and forth, true sign of nervousness.
Lisa? Yeah, I hear you.
Well, Sean, two things I think are really interesting from tonight. Look, Donald Trump wrote The Art of the Comeback, and that's exactly what happened tonight. Frank Luntz did a focus group, and Hillary Clinton's support with those swing voters went from 8 to 4, and Trump's doubled 8 to 16, or 9 to 16, rather. So his doubled. Yes. So his doubled.
Another
thing that was interesting about. It was 18. It was 18. You're right. Sorry, 18. But it went from 9 to 18 after the debate. Another thing that's interesting, Sean, if you look at the RNC put out a statement touting the debate tonight, so it looks like that they may actually be staying with Trump and keeping those funds to his campaign versus directing them to down ballot races, which is important for him.
All right, with all due respect, Lisa, these people are such babies. Here you have a family that abused women, persecuted women, smeared them, slandered them. A guy that had sex with an intern, cigars and dresses, and accusations of rape and groping and grabbing. And these guys are upset about a few words? I'm so angry at these. They're such wimps.
I get it, but the point I'm making is the fact that he needs them from a grassroots operation perspective, from getting out the vote.
Right.
He needs them from a tactical campaign perspective. So he needs them to stay with him. And it looks like, based off of the statement tonight, that they might be.
I think they would.
You know what I saw tonight? I saw fear in Hillary's eyes, and I saw fear in Bill Clinton's eyes. And I couldn't help but think, as he prosecuted this case, Donald Trump prosecuted, I couldn't help but think that Bill Clinton is thinking, am I going to be Bill Cosby? All of these women, they're like the ghosts of my past life, are coming back, and you actually can prosecute both of the Clintons for what has happened here.
But
And
there's one big difference, Judge. All right, Donald Trump used locker room talk, words.
Right.
What he did was unconscionable, and what they did together is smear, slander, besmirch, and treat these women like garbage.
They put words into action, and that's the difference. What the Clintons did was they violated the criminal law, the penal law, the federal law, the state law, the moral law, and they stand there as if they're on a higher moral ground than Donald Trump.
Oh, Trump was the only one, and this, by the way, is an indictment, Dr. Loudon, against the media, because they never asked her these questions.
No, and she had no answers. Did you realize she had no answers? She never answered anything about the emails. She completely just didn't answer it. And then she sat there smiling at the camera with this bizarre little smile, like that the public was not, they didn't deserve the answer. That was the look on her face. And so I think that there was a message there for the average American. I think that's why so many people probably switched to Trump tonight, because they saw what all of us have been screaming to say, because Donald Trump had to be the interviewer there. Because no one else
He
had to do
we're
the media's job.
irredeemables. We're the people who aren't entitled
Well,
to
you're
the
definitely
truth.
deplorable.
I am.
No. How long have we been friends? Who donated more money to your campaign than me?
More money to me, but you know what's well worth it? I was honest. I had a moral core. I prosecuted everyone.
I know, we still lost.
Yeah. No, we did. No, I won lots.
You won,
Back to Lisa.
Sean,
All right, back to Lisa.
I think another thing that Trump did well tonight was the fact that he did take on the moderators, and I think that was well placed because they were putting a lot more heat on him.
Why
than
did you
they
give her
were.
2 extra minutes and me 1 second?
I loved
it was
it.
great.
I loved it.
And it was so
did
true.
you guys
For all of
notice?
us.
And did you guys notice that after he said that, they sort of changed their tactics with him, and they did ask a couple of tougher questions to Hillary Clinton. So I think that was important that he did that. But outside of the fact that he landed some really solid hits to Hillary Clinton, he also brought up issues that were important. He talked about energy. He talked about Obamacare. He talked about taxes. And I think that was important because he showed a level of substance that we didn't see from him in the first debate. So I think that was really, really important that he did that tonight and talking about some of these issues Americans care about.
Question. Does he win, yes or no?
Absolutely.
He wins?
Of course he wins.
Lisa, does he win?
This is his defining moment.
Yes, he won.
He does win.
Absolutely.
No, does he win the election?
Oh, I don't know. I can't say yes. I'm sorry. But I do think he won the debate tonight.
But
right,
he is on top of his game. He knows the facts. He knows everything.
This was
he needs to.
a strong. This was powerful tonight. It's going to be interesting to watch poll numbers in the days to come. All right, when we come back, more reaction to tonight's second presidential debate. Reince Priebus is coming up, along with Larry Elder, Doug Schoen, David Limbaugh, and more as we continue live tonight from St. Louis.
Words, folks. It's just words. Those words, I've been hearing them for many years. I heard them when they were running for the Senate in New York, where Hillary was going to bring back jobs to upstate New York, and she failed. I've heard them where Hillary is constantly talking about the inner cities of our country, which are a disaster, education-wise, job-wise, safety-wise, in every way possible.
All right, one of the highlights from tonight's second presidential debate. Now, earlier, RNC Chairman Reince Priebus, he joined us right here in the spin room for reaction. Take a quick look. All right, joining us now is the RNC Chairman. Reince Priebus is with us. All right, thoughts on tonight?
Well, I thought that Donald Trump did a great job. He clearly won the debate. But I thought what he really did well is on every question, he pivoted back to Hillary. He made the case for himself, but then he asked a big question tonight. Look, you've got all these ideas, you've got all these plans, you've been in office for 30 years, and you didn't do it. I mean, whether it was about the taxes that she's talking about tax loopholes, I think he did a great job on that question. I think on talking about Libya, Benghazi, all of the fact
Syria, Iraq,
her emails. I mean, you just go on and on and on. The fact is, what he did tonight, I thought, very well, was prosecuting Hillary Clinton and the fact that she's been in the public for 30 years and it hasn't worked.
I also would argue that this was more about substance in a lot of ways, because he still talked about immigration. He talked about vetting refugees. They talked about Syria, Iraq, Benghazi, foreign policy, Putin, Russia. So I felt like, and the economy, as you point out. So I think a lot of substance came in here. And I also feel like he did something he didn't do in the last debate. And that is he decided to hit back. She's been dumping the kitchen sink. Kane's been dumping the kitchen sink. What did you feel about that?
No, and I thought that was the whole point, is that he wasn't going to just sit there and just defend every single charge coming his way. Look, as we've said many times, she memorizes a litany of accusations, one after the next. And she memorizes them. She does it with pretty good skill. But the fact that she couldn't remember when the FBI interviewed her about something actually important, 39 times she said she didn't recall. Yet she can recall every tiny grievance that ever came out of Donald Trump's mouth over 24 years. Let's face it. He's lived an extraordinary life. And some of it, I'm sure, is pretty wild. But he was a private citizen. She was in the public eye, and she did things that were inexcusable, and many times illegal.
And he said that, and he said he'd prosecute that. So now the American people are going to have a real choice. As I've been saying for a long time, this is a choice election, and there are big issues in play here. On the issue that everybody was talking about coming into tonight, and that is a tape from 11 years ago, he did point out, apologized, said he was embarrassed, said it a number of times, but he also brought up some really horrible behavior by the Clintons. It seemed like he was reluctant, but he did it in the end. Smart?
Well, I think you have to. Obviously, there's nothing to say good about that tape. I mean, I've got nothing good to say about it, of course, and it's terrible. And I think
but there's nothing good about their behavior, is there?
That's right. But their behavior doesn't excuse.
No, I'm not saying it does.
Right, I know. So the point is, I think he did what he had to do in regard to the tape. But look, it's something like he said that he was embarrassed by, that he apologizes for. He apologized to his family. He apologized to the American people. He was ashamed. Look, I think that what this race has to be about are about things that really, really matter, which is foreign policy, jobs,
the economy,
and the fact that Hillary Clinton has had her kick at the can many, many times on these issues, and she didn't deliver. Look, I can't say much about the good about any of that tape stuff. You know that. But I do think that he did a great job of prosecuting Hillary Clinton and coming back time and time again.
All right, Mr. Chairman, good to see you. Thank you so much, as always. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, joining us now with more reaction is nationally syndicated radio talk show host Larry Elder, former Clinton pollster, Fox News contributor Doug Schoen, and attorney David Limbaugh. Full disclosure, David has done legal work for me in the past, which I have to say all the time, but there's somebody will write about it tomorrow. I mean,
and hopefully in the future.
Yeah, and probably nobody in the future, and is one of the best attorneys I know. Thoughts?
I thought if there was one debate that could turn this election around and have Trump recover from this blow he took this week, this was it. It was a phenomenal performance. He was poised, he was prepared, he was calm, and he was firm without being mean. And I thought we had 3-1, the two moderators and Hillary Clinton against Donald Trump. They couldn't get him off his game. He was able not only to counterattack and turn the personal issues back on Hillary without dwelling on them, his own personal issues, and then he turned it on substantive issues, and he pointed out 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 substantive issues where she's weak and he's much stronger, from ISIS to calling terror terror, to economic growth, to degrading the military, to energy. He's big on energy, to regulations and taxes. He even deflected the issue about his own personal income tax issue.
No, he didn't deflect it. He said he pays hundreds of millions of dollars.
No, I mean, he turned it around on her. I mean, yeah, I don't mean he deflected.
All right, Larry, what were your thoughts?
Well, who would have thought 24, 48 hours ago that the Trump tape, ironically, would be something that he would turn to his advantage? It gave him an opportunity to be contrite, to say he was embarrassed, to apologize, but it also gave him an opportunity to talk about not only Bill's transgressions and alleged rape, but the fact that Hillary covered up for all these, for what he's done and abused the women that made the allegations. He was able to do that without appearing to reach for it. And I got to say something else too, Sean. There's so much hypocrisy here. Democratic icons are JFK. Teddy is an icon. Bobby is an icon. These are men who are serial cheaters, and their luster has not diminished in any way, shape, or form over the years as we've learned what they've done. So all this outrage the Democrats have over Donald Trump's behavior is just a bit much to me.
All right, let me go to Doug Schoen. Doug, look, you had some very tough criteria for Donald Trump to hit tonight. I don't think he could have done any better based on your criteria. What do you think?
Let me give you an assessment. I think he stabilized his candidacy, which is a huge, huge victory for him. That's point one. Point two, he was more substantive. He did prosecute the case well. Here are his challenges going forward. First, he's got to expand his base to all those that are upset with how this country is being run. So far, his base is not big enough to win. But, Sean, two other quick points. There are issues that were raised tonight that could that could change the election. Open borders and free trade. In the WikiLeaks leak, it's clear that Hillary has taken positions that are divergent with her public positions. If he can double down on that.
She actually said it. I mean, yeah, I mean, she's now for open borders.
Right.
That was right. But I mean, open borders. Let's open the, what, how many billions of people in the world?
And she's for free
she
trade.
also says a public and private persona.
Right.
You say one thing publicly, but behind the scenes, she's a very different person. Isn't that what everybody hates about politics?
It is. And when you add in free trade, which she's unabashedly endorsed, and she's opposed now TPP. Look, there's a huge opening for Trump. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. She's still going to be ahead. She's still the favorite. But this was a big, big stabilizing moment for Donald Trump.
What the polls have been tight. Here's a question I have. Is there a group of people that are being polled that won't admit they're voting for Trump?
I think there's some of that. I don't know. Maybe it's wishful thinking on those of us who want to see Hillary trounced. Right. But I think there's a lot of people who are not firm. They're not sure. And so you may not call them totally undecided, but they're wishy-washy. And a debate like tonight where Hillary had no answers and Trump hit her from 50 different angles on all four cylinders, all 8 cylinders. She gave no specifics other than saying generically, Donald Trump lied. And she never did follow up on any of the stuff. And he hit her hard on her lack of integrity and on her lying. And he did it in a way that wasn't mean. I want to emphasize that.
That's a delicate, that's a needle. You're threading a needle when you do that. And I agree. I think he hit the right pitch and tone and cadence.
I am surprised at how well he did. Not because I underestimate. I am just saying this. You couldn't have had a more phenomenal performance.
Larry, why are you laughing?
He had to do.
Well, I'm laughing at him saying he's surprised. Look, Donald Trump this time did his homework. I knew he'd be able to raise his game. Hillary did as best as she could the last time. She can't do any better. I knew Donald Trump could do a lot better, and he did, especially on the issues of taxes. He talked about all the other taxes that he paid. He should have said that the last time. And one final thing, as somebody else pointed out, Donald Trump was asked, did you do these things? He had to respond to that. Hillary has never been asked, did you verbally intimidate Juanita Broaddrick, an alleged rape survivor, as she says? Have you ever done that? She's never been asked that. Incredibly unfair.
You know, it has been unfair, and that's the thing. Doug, you got to admit, for a long time, the Clintons have gotten a pass. The media doesn't ask them tough questions. And what I think was most effective, on top of talking about substance and issues and showing a passion, he prosecuted the case. They've been there forever. They haven't got the job done. They are corrupt. They have enriched themselves. And by the way, take the tapes that he said and compare it to their actions, and it's a lot worse.
Yeah, look, it was well handled tonight. I give it to Donald Trump. He's going to be elected if he's elected on issues, not the Clintons' past behavior on sex.
But he certainly neutralized any attacks because what they did and the way they treated women is far worse. Yeah. All right, guys, good to see you all.
He neutralized the tape, which is the big accomplishment.
Right.
By the way, I'd hire Larry, too. He's a good lawyer.
So am I.
I work
cheap. You, Larry. All right.
I work cheap.
That's all the time we have left this evening. As always, thank you for being with us. We'll see you back in New York tomorrow night. Juanita Broaddrick, Kathleen Willey, and Kathy Shelton will join us. Hope you will, too.